Great, I'm so glad you guys are here. Welcome to Anatomy Crash Course. This is like the best step you could take before coming into anatomy. My name is Kyle, and I'm the director of our tutoring program on campus. We're called the Student Success and Opportunity Center. For those of you that don't know, we're located in the Learning and Resource Center building, which is just kind of in front of this one on the second floor. And one of the sheets that I gave to you guys, it says SSOC information. That just tells where we're located, has our website and our number. I'll talk about that a little bit later. I have never taken anatomy, so I am not versed in the class. However, I'm here today to give you guys some college survival tips, some general study tips that will really help kind of spur you guys into this class, because as you've probably heard or maybe aware of, this is going to be a different level. It's not going to be your average, basic comp or college algebra. While those are difficult classes, this is going to be a step up from that, and you're really going to kind of have to step up your game as far as studying goes and time management. So that's what I'm going to go over first, kind of some general study ideas, and then Mike, you want to say hi and introduce yourself? That's Mike.
I'm Mike. I'm the laboratory technician, master of arms. And basically, I handle all the dissection schedules. I hire and fire our lab technicians. If you do well in the course, you'll be invited to become a lab technician. I train you. I run a workshop series. I also help Kyle do this. And I master all the open labs. Pretty much, you'll see me in and out of your lab classes. Either I'll be assisting the professor, or I'll be practicing a test, or you'll see me dissecting my cadaver. It just depends. So good to see you guys.
Yeah, we're excited. So Mike will speak later, and we'll have some of the professors and previous tutors and lab techs talk as well. Oh. Okay. Not sure what's going on there. We'll go ahead and start. Okay, so college survival, that's kind of the theme of today. Whoops. Did everybody take the learning style quiz that I sent to you guys? Awesome. Okay, we're going to try out something that we did at our orientation yesterday. If you guys this is the only time you'll probably hear this in a lecture, but get out your phones, get out your cell phones, and this is called Poll Everywhere. It's kind of cool, but basically you just text in your results so we can kind of see where everybody lies in the spectrum. But however you scored, whatever your most primary learning style was, what you'll do, it's a little confusing, but you'll text to the number 22333, so 2 2s and 3 3s, and then whichever style you tested most into, just text that number to 22333. I feel like I sound like a commercial. But yeah, and it'll just kind of see I like to see where everybody kind of lies in the spectrum. No tactile yet. Oh, there we go. It wasn't working for some phones yesterday, so I apologize if it doesn't for yours, but okay, visual. Nice. Cool, so lots of visuals. That's good for this course, auditory, and just a few tactiles. Interesting. Well, the good thing about this class, from what I understand, is that you're going to be using pretty much all these different styles. But it's definitely going to be a visual type thing, and definitely you're going to have some hands-on experience. Cool. Awesome, thanks. Did you see that, Mike? That's for everybody? Yeah. So as far as learning styles go, I like to call them learning preferences instead of learning styles, because really it's not the end-all be-all of your learning. You may be more tactile or more visual, but that doesn't mean that you can't learn in the other styles. Especially, it doesn't mean that your teacher is going to necessarily adhere to your specific style. And it's actually been proven in studies that we learn best when our teachers give us kind of all different types of styles to work with in class. But I just wanted to make sure that you guys have the tools, when you're studying on your own or when you're studying in groups, to understand how you would maybe study or learn best in your style. So if you're auditory, you obviously want to sit where you can hear best, because that's how you're going to retain your information. You want to make sure if you use flashcards or if you use a different type of studying that you're speaking out loud so you can hear the answers. You can always read stories, read directions, read your textbook out loud, or even record things, recording lectures or recording yourself. And then again, having test questions, that may not be necessarily something you can do, but if you're studying, having the questions read out loud to yourself, and then studying your material by reading out loud. Visual, you're definitely going to see, you're going to learn by seeing. So again, using flashcards, but if you're more visual, then you may not necessarily have to speak them out loud, but you'll retain the information by just seeing the flashcard and you can remember that. Or not necessarily flashcard, but any type of learning material that you use. Trying to visualize things, I'm more visual as well, so when I read textbooks, I try to remember what the pages looked like, and that's always helpful. Definitely write. I mean, for any type of studying, you're going to want to write a lot, but for visual, that's definitely going to help as well. Writing down things so you remember what the words are. One thing about this course that Mike will definitely emphasize is that spelling is important. So visual learners and auditory learners and even tactile learners, just make sure you're using your style as best as you can to learn how to spell the words correctly. Drawing pictures helps, color coding things helps, and then you may be distracted more easily if you're visual by seeing different things, so make sure you're free of distractions when you're studying. Tactile means hands-on, so participate in the activities. If you're more hands-on, then you want to be, I mean, no matter what style you are, you want to be going to all of the labs. But if that really helps you out, then definitely go to as many labs as you can. You know, if you're a tactile learner, I actually like this style the best because it's okay at this point to kind of walk around, chew gums, you know, kind of fidget and things like that. That's actually encouraged if you're a hands-on learner. Flashcards, so if you're using a flashcard type method, I'm visual and tactile, so my major was art history, so way different than anatomy, but you still had to learn how to spell things correctly, and you had to learn the exact time frame of when the paintings were made or when the sculptures were made. So I used to get a huge table in college, and I would just make my flashcards, and I would literally put them in order, and then that's how I would learn best. Tracing words, again, taking breaks, making sure you're moving, and using a computer is also helpful for tactile. So I just wanted to briefly give you guys a quick understanding of those learning styles or learning preferences. Another thing that's important for this course and any type of course at the college level is the fact that you guys have a level of self-assessment. So that's kind of what I wanted to start you guys off with by giving you that learning style quiz is you're assessing yourself, you're testing yourself and how you learn best. So self-assessment just means you're evaluating yourself, your actions, your attitudes, your performance at a job or in school, and you're considering or learning a task considered in relation to an objective standard. So just make sure in this course you have a very high level of self-assessment, because at all times during the course, it's not just on test day or after test day, it's going to be throughout the course. How am I doing? Do I have a good grasp of the information? Did I do well on the quizzes? Am I doing well on the tests? Because you don't want to wait until it's too late. And if you have a good level of self-assessment, it won't be too late. So one of the tools I gave you guys, is the 40 characteristics of a successful student that I found. I thought it was pretty good. It's not from our university, but I definitely think it's a cool thing that I found online that you guys can use. You don't have to necessarily, check these off every day, but I would go through this list, and make sure that you have these in mind at all times during the semester. So some of the things include identifying your long-term goals. Are you attending class? Are you completing your assignments? Are you bringing your books and papers to class? Are you thinking actively? Are you turning your assignments in on time? Are you cramming? Things like that. So when you check seldom, or actually when you check usually, on this one, if you check usually, seldom or sometimes, then you want to reevaluate that area. So this is a good check sheet, I think, to help you guys learn some self-evaluating tips. Again, especially throughout the semester, just making sure you know where you're at during class. I don't know, Mike, did they use D2L? Do they put grades in D2L?
Yes, D2L posts your grades and also
Okay.
have everything that's written on the board or drawn on the board, and also links to YouTube videos you can use for your study.
Okay, I'm just wondering if they post the grades to where they can check their grades frequently. Okay, so for those of you that don't know about D2L yet, you will very shortly. It's Desire to Learn, and it's your online classroom. So you'll have that online platform that you can sign into, and you'll be able to check your grades. A lot of people, or some students, may not check their grades throughout the whole semester, but it's a simple sign-in process to where you can just check your grade frequently, and that way you can have an idea of where you're at. And obviously, what are some steps that you can take if your grades are dropping? What might you guys do if you find your grades dropping? Tutoring? Anything else? Studying more? Yes, that's the one I wanted to hear. Big one. Talk to your professors. Or Mike, they're going to be your biggest advocate. So go to them when you feel like you're dropping, because they're going to give you guys helpful tips on how to get through it. Okay, so time management. This is a huge aspect, especially for this course, because of the level of studying it takes to get through it. Again, this isn't necessarily a level 1 course. It's going to be a higher level course where you're going to have to spend more time studying than you normally would. So I always encourage students to create study plans and also to create semester-long calendars. We'll go over that in a second. Before you kind of start to create those things, you want to make sure you know, again, you're self-assessing, you know your study habits. So ask yourself, what's your easiest and most difficult course? This is going to be one of your most difficult courses. I'll just tell you that right now. So you're going to spend more time on this course. Know how you like to study. Are you more of a person who likes to study in short spurts, or do you like long periods? Whichever way is fine, just make sure you're being consistent with that, because that's how you're going to best retain the information. Are you a morning person or a night person? Utilize your biological clock and to your advantage, because if you're a morning person, you're going to be more alert then. If you're night, you're going to be more alert at that time. So you want to study when you're more alert. And on your weekends. Obviously, you won't be in class, so this is going to be a big chunk of time that you can spend to studying. You need to ask yourself, what are things that you can take away from your weekends that you can incorporate studying into? I know sometimes we have family obligations or work, but there are things that you can probably take away at this point to add more study time in. Okay, so calendars. Again, this is going to be a big help as far as planning in your study time goes. First, we have weekly calendars. So I usually just get a weekly calendar from like Outlook or however you want to do it. You can get some at the store. And then you fill in all your weekly activities that you have to go to. So that means the time that you're in class, if you have like family obligations, the times you're in work, or if you have meetings during the week. And then, of course, you definitely don't want to forget about eating, sleeping, and exercise. Don't forget that those are also essential. You don't want to not be doing those things. So once you have all of those things that you have to be doing in your weekly calendar, then you can get a visual idea of when you're going to be able to schedule in your study time. So the rule of thumb, and this may be, you guys may need to modify this, but the rule of thumb for college is that you're studying 2 to 3 hours per hour of class. So that means if you're taking 12 hours, you're studying 24 to 36 hours for all your classes outside of class. I'm assuming that it's about 3 hours, 4 hours, okay, 4 to 5 hours for anatomy. So this is a 3-credit level course, correct? It's a 4-credit, so that means that you're studying 16 to 20 hours a week for this class alone. Okay? And that's the reality of it. So this is why these calendars are really helpful, because it allows you to see when you have that free time to study and when you can take away things that may be not as detrimental to this semester. So remember, it's not going to last forever. It'll end in December. But if you manage your time wisely, you'll get through it successfully. So then it's always good to also have, so you have your weekly calendars where you know when you're going to study. Of course, if something comes up, that can always change, but it's a good idea, again, to know when you're going to spend your time studying. Then it's also good to have a semester-long calendar. So get a yearly planner. You can get an OSU-OKC planner at the bookstore. And then mark down in that calendar kind of all the big things that are going to happen in the semester. So breaks, or if you're taking a personal holiday. And then also go through your syllabus and mark down, especially in anatomy, you want to mark down any of the big test dates or due dates, quizzes, things like that, because they'll have that all set out for you already in your syllabus. Oh, I forgot to tell you guys, I'm sorry I didn't give you a copy of this. It's a little, this program's called Prezi, and it's a little hard to print off. It's not like PowerPoint. So I'll email you guys a copy of this once we're done today. So go through your syllabus and mark all the due dates. And then also you can start recording mini deadlines for when you're going to study. So if you have a test coming up in 2 weeks, in 1 week, you can say, I'm going to have half the material studied, things like that. And then what this is good for is to see if there's any scheduling conflicts. If you have 2 tests on one day, or if you have something planned out of town, but you have a big project due right before or right after. So this is when you can prioritize if things like that happen. I know this sounds really kind of OCD and crazy, but you almost have to be like this to be able to succeed in tough classes. So definitely consider doing this before, or I would say during the first week of school. So again, remember you've got your weekly calendar, and then you've got your semester-long calendar. And if you guys ever need help with this, I am available to help students make these calendars. So I can definitely sit down with you guys. You might want to write this down. I'm in LRC 203. And my name is Kyle, K-Y-L-E. And you can reach me, the SSOC number is on the handout that I gave you. Okay, so time management, a huge thing. Also active learning. Like I said before, this is a different level of class, so it's not going to be something that you can sit passively through and just maybe hear the information and do well on. You're really going to have to charge your brain up to learn actively in the class. Whoops. I always like to show students this scale. This is called the curve of forgetting. And it's really interesting, and I think it's probably true. So here is, say you come to lecture and you learn all this new information. You're at day 1 of the new information that you learn. And as you can see, your learning has peaked up to here because you just learned new stuff. Now, as the days progress, if you don't revisit that material, this is how your retention declines, or your remembering of that information would decline. So on day 2, if you don't go over any of the material, you're going to remember 10 minutes of an hour lecture. On day 7, you're going to remember 5 minutes, and on day 30, you're going to remember 2 to 4 minutes. So that's really not feasible if you have an hour lecture, several times a week, and then you have a test in 30 days. To remember only 2 to 4 minutes of information from those lectures is not feasible to pass the course. That's why it's important to actively learn and to continually study your notes and things like that. So I like to promote the ARTS method, what I call the ARTS method. So actively listening, reading, taking notes, and studying. I'll go over this quickly. So actively listening, if you guys haven't heard of that before, it's probably a little self-explanatory, but instead of just listening passively and hearing, you're processing the information that you're hearing. So you're actually learning. And you can do this by just listening, but it's really helpful to use your tools from class and take notes to help you actively listen. One thing that I think is interesting is that I read recently that reading and taking notes, even though it seems like a visual task, is actually auditory, because while you're writing and reading, you're saying the words out loud in your brain. So it's actually not out loud, but you're saying the words in your brain. So it's actually an auditory process. So doing those things really helps you remember. So reading your textbooks, and we're going to go over more ways to read your textbook a little bit more depth, but I always like to go over these helpful tips. Textbooks are definitely difficult to read. It's definitely a different type of literature. So when you're reading your textbooks, make sure you're using your context clues. There's going to be a lot of new vocabulary that you're going to come across, and you don't necessarily want to stop at each word, because if you do, that's going to really hinder you from moving forward in the reading. Of course, you want to try to know or learn those new things, but what I like to call context clues is use the rest of the text to help you try to understand what those new words mean. So read through the rest of the chapter or the paragraph and see if you can understand the gist of what the book is trying to say, and then that will be helpful instead of just stopping at each word. Because if you stop at each word, then you're going to have to go back and you may not remember what you read previously. Again, that's why reading to the end is important. It'll give you the overall grasp of what's going on. Even if it's boring or really difficult, just keep reading and you'll get to it. Scan and decode. So focusing on scanning is something that takes practice. So if you try scanning through this, it may not click right away, and that's okay. It took me almost until graduate school to really understand how to scan well. So you just have to practice. But it's focusing on the nouns and the main prepositions in each sentences. So looking for your nouns and your action words. So focus your learning and your reading on those words, and that will help you scan through the text more quickly. Again, you want to read to the end. You want to use your context clues. And then this is really, really huge. So when you sit down with your book, you absolutely have to have a highlighter, a pen, and a piece of paper. Because reading, it's not like we just talked about active listening. It's not just about casually reading. It's about processing that information. So when you sit down, always have your highlighter, your pen, and a separate sheet of paper. Use your pen to underline. What I do is I underline things that I have questions about, and I highlight main ideas. You guys can come up with your own thing, but that's what I like to do. So that way I know the difference. So the things that I've highlighted are things that you want to focus on, and things that are underlined are things that I may have questions on or want to revisit. And you can use your pen then and your paper to jot down questions. You can jot down summaries, anything like that. This will give you notes. In the same way that you take notes in a lecture, it will give you notes for your readings. And that way you have notes for both things. Again, we'll go over some more reading strategies in a second. Okay, so taking notes. I like this 3R method. So you've come to lecture, you've read your textbook, and you have your notes. You've recorded your notes. Just make sure you're including a heading, what class subject it's for, because you may think you remember, but then you're going to get it shuffled with other stuff. So make sure you have all that written down. You've captured your main ideas. You've used words or pictures or graphs to help you capture those ideas. Once you have your notes, then reduce those notes. So after class is over, after you've done your reading, summarize those notes. I like to summarize them in a Word document. That way it's a little cleaner, but you guys can do whatever is helpful for you. That way you can re-record the key ideas. Maybe you can leave out some stuff that's not necessary, or add things or questions that you think would be important. You can also link that information to other tools in class, like lecture or textbooks, your lab manual, things like that. Then those notes can be such a helpful tool for you to review. So you can review before each class or review before each test. And then finally, we're ready to study. So studies find that our brains retain or remember the information better when we're learning over a longer period of time in shorter spurts. So if you think of it kind of like working out, like if you're training for a half marathon and you run 10 miles in 3 days, you're not going to be prepared. But if you run in small amounts over a long period of time, then you could be prepared for that half marathon. So, okay, before we go over study plan, I want to show you this video on procrastination that kind of goes over this idea of studying in longer periods. So we'll play.
All right, well, let's be honest.
Oh yeah, this lady has a really annoying voice. I apologize, but it's good.
What else you're supposed to be doing right now? Do you have a paper due in 10 hours? Is there a stinky pile of laundry slowly inching its way across your bedroom floor? You should be doing those things, but instead you're here listening to me lecture you on YouTube. Wait. Don't
really
go
annoying.
away just yet. The next 5 minutes will be the most productive bit of procrastination you have done all day. And you're not the only one procrastinating. Thanks to a suggestion by one of our viewers, today's episode of Wellcast is going to bring you a 3-step program to wrangle your monster of procrastination into submission. About 20% of the population identifies themselves as chronic procrastinators. People who constantly put off the things that they really need to do. And that is because procrastination is about lying to yourself. You know, telling yourself, I'll have plenty of time to finish that paper tomorrow, when you know you are way behind. In a recent study, 2 groups of university students were assigned to write 3 papers in 3 weeks. Group A was given the opportunity to turn in all 3 papers in at any point during those 3 weeks. Group B, on the other hand, had strict weekly deadlines for each paper. Ultimately, the ones who did the best on the papers were the ones given the strict deadlines. Group A, the students who had to pick their own deadlines, they did pretty poorly. Clearly, humans are not the best at regulating themselves. So, when it comes to procrastination, you have to trick yourself into getting the job done. And this brings us to our Wellcast 3-step method for stopping procrastination. Please pause and print out your worksheet at watchwellcast.com. Okay, are you ready? Step 1, eat an elephant. Hey, I ate an elephant. 1 bite at a time. Look, what I'm saying is, you need time to digest, or you're going to make yourself sick. Reward yourself for getting through parts of the project, rather than waiting to reward yourself after the whole thing's over. Okay, procrastinator, think about that one project that you really need to get done. But calm down. Instead of letting it overwhelm you, organize that project into small, bite-sized, manageable segments. Think about what needs to get done and write down what you're going to be doing to tackle this project hour by hour and make it specific. By breaking down this giant project into small tasks, this elephant will become a lot less daunting. Step 2, pick out the itsy-bitsy goblins instead of going for the whole dragon. The hardest part about starting any project is always starting the project. A good way to get around this is to start a project off with the task you like the best. Listen, when you do something that you like, your brain releases dopamines, which makes you happy. Maybe it's decorating a cover of a report or writing a snappy intro into an otherwise incredibly boring paper. Step 3, ignore the siren songs. Seriously, this step is straight out of Homer's epic poem, The Odyssey. In The Odyssey, our protagonist Ulysses is trying to get home. Unfortunately, this requires maneuvering through a strait of water where sailors are often lured onto the rocks by creatures called sirens. Instead of giving up, Ulysses instructs his crew to tie him to the mast of his ship and for all of them to plug their ears. No matter how much he yells and screams to head towards the beautiful sirens, the sailors must keep on track. We're not saying that you need to actually tie yourself up to anything, but you should plan to clear any distractions that will hamper your ability to procrastinate later. For example, if you're a sucker for Facebook or online video games, have your parents or your roommates change the internet password to keep you on track for studying. The less temptations you give into, or have the ability to give into, the better you'll be at acing that exam. Okay, Karos, let's recap. The best way to get around procrastination is to trick yourself into doing the work. It's true though. We recommend that you do this in one of 3 ways. Number 1, breaking your tasks into segments. In other words, you know how to eat that elephant. Number 2, start with the most enjoyable part of the project. Go for those itsy-bitsy goblins. And number 3, avoid that siren song. Clear out those distractions so you can get the job done. At least it's helped. Leave us a message below or email us at watchwellcast.com.
All right, thanks.
Tweet us at
Sorry. Let's see. So that just reiterates the fact that you guys need to be making mini deadlines. Those calendars, again, will help with procrastination because everybody will want to procrastinate at some point. So I just like that video for that kind of thing. So we already talked about study plans and writing out your study thing for the week, so I don't need to go over that. But I do just want to give you guys some prep and review strategy tips that I think are helpful for this class, and Lyndon and Mike might give you guys some more specific information, but it's going to be important, again, that you know what works best for you. Some people it may be flashcards, some people it may just be simply writing down on a sheet of paper, but here are some things that you can use when studying for a big exam. Again, it's about taking all your tools from class, the things that you've read and you've heard in class, into your notes, and then creating prep strategies, what I like to call prep strategies. Studying has two parts to it. So once you create these prep strategies, then you actually have to review them, which is the study process. So make sure that you're doing both. It's not just about opening your book and thinking you're going to study. It's about actually doing something to create these strategies to help you study. So again, you may love flashcards. I love flashcards. Other people may like making study guides or making example tests. You may answer questions in the chapter. You may create concept maps. But here's just some examples that you can use. But again, remember, once you've created these things, then you have to review them. So based on your learning preference, you can recite them out loud. You can recite them from memory. You can have a study buddy and help you guys remember those things. But definitely try to think of studying in two different steps. You're prepping and then you're reviewing. Kind of a lot of information, but okay. And then I did want to go over reading again really quickly. Again, this is going to be a big thing because the textbook, from what I see, is pretty hefty. So again, just make sure that you're focusing on reading and you're using steps to help you read. I like to use this SQ3R method. I've tried it out a couple times. I didn't use it in college because I had not heard of it. But I tried it out just here so I can tell students about it, and I think it's really helpful. So S equals survey. So before you even start to read a chapter, just survey the chapter. Look at the titles, the pictures, what's the introduction and conclusion saying, what are some bolded or italicized words, are there questions at the end, or are there questions in the middle? Even look at the first and last sentences in the paragraphs. And then also footnotes. So survey for all those things before you start reading. Q is for questioning. While you're surveying, it's a good idea to start writing down questions. So what you can do is fold a sheet of paper in half, and on the left side, as you're surveying, write down questions. So if the title of the chapter is 5 ways to stop procrastinating, you might write down the question, what are the 5 ways to stop procrastinating? Things like that. So just write down any questions you might have that come up as you look at all those different things that you're surveying. Again, you want to write down your questions. You can do this style if you want to, or you can just write them down on a sheet of paper. And then also look at any questions that are posed by the author and write those down as well, because those are obviously important questions that you'll want to get answered. So then the 3 R's. The first one is read. So actually then go through and read the chapter. Have in mind that you're going to be answering the questions that you wrote down. So as you read and as you read the answers to the questions, write those answers down on the other side of the sheet of paper. The second R is recite. Again, this is about taking your tools and then using them to review. So you can recite each question out loud, each answer out loud. You can do it verbally or inside your head, whatever is helpful to you. And then the third R is review. So you can use these notes from your textbook to review before class, before tests, anything that helps. Okay, and finally, I just wanted to go over study environments really quickly because those are very important as well to your studying. I definitely discourage people, I encourage people to find a study environment that's right for your learning preference. I discourage people from studying on their beds because you're going to associate your bed with sleep. And so while you're studying, you're probably going to fall asleep if you study on your bed. I have done that before in the past, and it has always been a failure. So make sure if you're at your home or at school or wherever you are in the coffee shop, that it's an environment that's helpful, that's most helpful for your learning style. Again, I like this quote: students should create study areas that promote learning and are free of distractions. An effective study area is a significant part of good time management, which we just talked about, and a strong support for learning methods. So a good study area should include these things. Well, if you guys need to print, you can always print on our floor in the SSOC, but if you are needing to print right there, that you make sure that your printer is stocked. This is definitely a good one. You definitely want to make sure, I'm going to bring this down a little bit so you can see it, that you have pens, extra paper, you maybe have a stapler if you need it. You definitely have all your textbook materials with you. So you have everything there so you don't have to get up constantly and go get that stuff. You want it free from distractions. So turn off the TV, maybe even turn off your phone or instant message, anything that's going to pop up, because those things are going to, text messages are going to kind of distract you from that time period that you've set out. And remember, if you've done your weekly planner and you know when you're going to study, then you know that eventually the study time is going to end. So if you have 2 hours on Thursday evening mapped out to study, then after that 2 hours is over, then you can go back to your text messaging or whatever. Again, you want to make sure you have your planner, that it's filled out so you can see, okay, I have this test coming up in 2 weeks. I have a test coming up in 5 days. So you can see when that thing is due. A to-do list. So I know it's a lot, but list. So you have your planners out, but then also you may want to make a to-do list just for that specific study session. What are your goals for that study session? Are you going to read through 2 chapters and then take notes on that chapter? What are you going to do for that? And then also your semester calendar. It's always good to have a place that's well lighted, so that you can read, obviously, and not have eye strain, and that it's comfortable, but not so comfortable that's your bed. So I just remember in grad school studying at the library. I was at the University of Colorado in Boulder, and they had these huge wooden chairs in the library, and they were so uncomfortable. So I switched from studying there, but I also didn't go to like I said, a place that I would fall asleep in. So just make sure that it's somewhere in between. So study environments, once you've kind of found your study environment that suits you, you also want to think about studying individually and with a group. Studying individually has some benefits. You may get more accomplished, especially if you're utilizing your own personal learning preferences. If you've created this nice environment, you're usually more free from distractions, and you can set it at your own time in your own place. However, especially for this course, we strongly encourage studying in groups. In groups, you're going to retain the information better because you're going to be discussing it with each other. You're going to be talking about the ideas and thinking about the ideas together. You guys can confirm any confusing ideas together, share new perspectives. You guys can create a sense of encouragement, which you will need for this class. It will increase your confidence, and it will give you the opportunity to also learn new study habits from each other. And it also prevents procrastination because it helps you have somebody that makes you accountable. So while individual studying is necessary for all college courses, you want to be doing both, but for courses like this, you definitely want to make sure you're doing a lot of group studying. Okay? So that's all I had for you guys today for general study tips. Again, I can see if I can get this printed off for you guys, otherwise before the end of the day. Otherwise, I will email this presentation to you. Does anybody have any questions? Okay. Again, you might want to look at the SSOC information sheet that I gave you. This has, again, I'm Kyle. I'm the director of our tutoring program. So our tutoring center is located on the second floor of the LRC. We have tutoring, we have workshops, and we have a computer lab. And this is our hours, our website, and our phone number. And we'll talk about this in more detail in a second, but we're providing 3 anatomy tutors this semester. 2 of them will be in the open labs, and we'll give you guys those schedules in a bit. And then 1 will be in the SSOC just for like kind of a lecture tutor. That schedule will all be on our website by the end of today. So just make sure you're utilizing tutoring as well. And again, if you have any questions, if you want to meet with me personally to talk about a study plan or to talk about your planners, please come see me. Or if you're having trouble getting connected with a tutor, also come see me. But that's all I have for you guys today. Thank you so much. And I will turn it over to your fellow anatomy people.
All right, so this guy, now this is Linda. He's actually one of the anatomy tutors that you'll be seeing, and he'll be working inside of Open Lab. His schedule is, what did I put you? Fridays?
Fridays, the HT room 302.
Sure.
So 1 to 3 on Fridays. I guess I'll tell you a little bit about myself. Some expectations for you guys and from me. Kind of what I have planned to focus on during our tutoring sessions, and maybe an anecdote of a challenge that I had in the class and how I overcame it. I took it a year ago, so it's still somewhat fresh. I got just a little bit about me. I have a bachelor's in English from OU, so I root for OU at the Bedlam games. So I'm sorry if that hurt your feelings. But then I worked as an EMT for about a year and a half for IMSA here in the city, and now I'm starting my first semester nursing. So. Some things that you guys can expect from me. Whenever I have issues with instructors, it's usually because when I ask questions, they don't really understand the core of what I'm trying to ask, and I know they don't have time to really drill into what I'm, the core of my question or misunderstanding. So, what you can expect is I'm going to listen. To whatever you have to say, listen to your questions, and I'll probably repeat back, and paraphrase what you've told me so I can know and understand what you're asking. And if I don't know the answer, I'm not an instructor. My bachelor's is in English, and I took the class a year ago. So if I don't know, I'll tell you, and we'll find it together. So I won't be afraid to say I don't know, because I don't want to give you the wrong answer. Something I expect from you guys is to communicate with me and come with specific questions so that we make the most of the 2 hours. If there's a particular structure that you're having trouble with, or if it's just a study strategy that you need help with, you gotta let me know, because I can't read minds. So that's what I expect from you. Some things that we'll focus on will be the study skills. Kyle, everything she said, I found out maybe my senior year of college, because I never went to one of these. But I slowly figured it out because I'm slow, and they really do work. I mean, just planning and making lists, and I had a binder that, a 2-inch binder that by the end of the semester was completely full of just handwritten notes, and I took notes on computer paper, and I just filled it top to bottom, front to back for each class. And it was more time consuming, so I'm going to use some of what she said to try to cut down my study time. But flashcards, you're going to need a lot more than flashcards for this class, for sure, for anatomy.
We have a ton of flashcards in the SSOC. Like, I just order them in bulk for students. So if you guys are like limited, on flashcards, if you need any, just come see me for that. And just one more thing that I think that I wanted to emphasize too is it seems like a lot, but the point is that you're putting a lot in at the beginning, so it's easier for you. Like, I like to think of it kind of like as a triangle. Like, you put in a lot at the top, and it gets easier as you go down. So instead of the other way around, where if you don't put a lot into it at the beginning, then it's going to be really difficult for you to study when you sit down. So.
Yep. No, that's exactly right. So another thing I like to do is as I'm reading the text, I try to think like a professor, and when I read some information, I look at it and try to, I think, how would I turn that into an exam question? So I look at a lot of the information as an exam, as I'm taking an exam, as I'm reading it. So that seems to help. And, I find when I sit down to take the actual exam, it's pretty similar to what, I had been thinking all along. So that helps a lot too. And then I'll give you an anecdote of a challenge that I had. I missed the lab where we started talking about the brachial plexus. Yeah, that was like the worst lab to miss. And because I'd put in a lot at the beginning, and I got a little bit lax, and I missed that class, and then I looked over the brachial plexus, and I think my palms started sweating, and I almost passed out. But I was sitting waiting to go for them to unlock the open lab, and I looked up a diagram of the brachial plexus, how to draw it in 2 minutes or something like that on YouTube. And so for about 20 minutes, I wrote it over and over again, probably 50 or 60 times, until I could do it from memory with my eyes closed. And then when I walked into that open lab, I was leading the other students in identifying the structures. So I went from missing the class to, being really secure and how I knew. So her study suggestions, write, from memory, and just write and write and write over and over again. So that's all I got for you right now. So can I keep this? So,
Thank you.
Thanks, Linda.
yep.
I don't know how to use this thing.
Just flip it.
Sounds very complicated. All right, so what did I just pass out to you? It's a little bit of helpful tips and lifestyle guides. Why am I talking about your lifestyle? Most of you are unhealthy. No. The reason is because when you're in college, you also put your coursework before yourself. Your body, your mind, your sleep. Most importantly, you need sleep. I'm not going to go over these bullet points. You guys know how to read. You know how to go look this up. We're talking about open lab. What is open lab? I'll talk about it in a second. The schedule we're following is on Saturday, Sunday mornings, 8 to 12. Who works on the weekends? I won't see you. Just kidding. I'll be there on Sunday, actually. So Saturday and Sunday mornings, 8 to 12. Sunday, 1 to 5. And Saturday, 1 to 5. Then the weekends, every morning it's in 302. Every afternoon is in 305. Monday through Thursday, we have open lab at 8:45 to 10:45 p.m. Why so late? We have classes all day long. Our first class is at 8. Our last class is at 6:45 to 8:45. So that's 19 lab sections, completely full all week long. That's why we only have this little bit of time for you all to study. If you can't come on the weekends, come during the week. If you can't come during the week, there's Friday. Friday's special. Friday's at 1 to 3 in HT 306. You see the room numbers change a little bit. What the thing going on is I need to be able to alternate what rooms are open. That way each person in each lab, whether you're in HT 302 or in HT 306, has an opportunity to review the cadavers. Now, cadavers are going to vary from body to body, but however, in general, if you come to open lab, you're going to have a better understanding of how the body mechanics work. So I cannot stress, even though it's not the lab that you're in, you should still come in, and that way you have a better idea of what to expect once you do go into your lab. At the very bottom, we have a bit of exceptions. The Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday before Exam 1 and Exam 2, we will be closed. Why are we closed? Your first 2 tests will be directly on the cadavers, which means we have to pin the cadavers and prep them for your tests. So you won't have an opportunity to come. So if you're waiting to the last minute to come to open lab and study those cadavers, it's too late. You have your test on Wednesday, I'm closed Tuesday. You have your test on Thursday, I'm closed Tuesday and Wednesday. You need to come in as early as possible when you can and study ahead of time. That's only for the first 2 exams. On the last exams, they're actually called point and shoots, which basically means the professor is going to make up the exam right then and there, right on the spot. He's going to point things and you're going to have to figure it out right then. That's actually kind of fun, I think, but I'm a nerd. In the very bottom, the anatomy tutoring lab tentative schedule. Right now it's on Monday in an open lab from 8:45 to 10:45 in HT 306. And on Fridays, it's 1 to 3 at HT 302. Does anyone have any questions about the schedule at this time? Yeah.
When will we need to utilize the open lab?
That's up to you.
Test or just
No.
when we
Open Lab's going to be open every day before everything. Well, throughout the semester. Every day except for holidays, of course.
Basically for like more hands-on studying use, right?
It's for review. I want you to think of Open Lab as more as a library, a time period for you to personally come in and review whatever you need to do. Yes?
So it'd be like after your class, like I have the class Monday, Wednesday night, so I could just stay later and review what I just learned in lab.
Perfect. That's exactly what we expect from you. Open Lab is a time period for you to review, go over any information you've missed, and actually study what exactly is going on in class. I have a system worked up that I think will work really, really well. We're going to go over it. I'm actually waiting for your professors, your lead instructor, Dr. Dean Shear, and our adjunct professor, Dr. John Chambers, who won, who was given Teacher of the Year last year. So why don't we go ahead and take a, let's say, 5-minute break, and then we'll get back to it, and I'll start on pure anatomy. Sound good? Let's take a break.
Okay, who's going to unmute it?
There we go.
I guess I don't need these. I guess I'm trapped in it.
Well, I didn't think that we had one. I guess we do have one, but we didn't know about it. So.
Unmute me.
Good.
Is the world treating you good?
Do what?
Is the world treating you good?
Yeah.
Good. Do you want to introduce me or do I introduce myself? Is this thing on? Testing, testing. Okay, I guess I'll introduce myself. I'm Dr. Chambers. For those of you who don't know, I'm one of the lecture instructors. The course director is Dr. Shear, which is over here by the door. I'm going to make a few statements and then I'll take some questions if you have any questions. How many of you realize what you're about to get into? Right? It's a journey in pain, right? It's not that bad, really. Here's the deal. If you stay up on the material, this subject is very doable. But if you procrastinate or if you wait till the last minute, it will be a monster that will rise up out of the floor and consume you where you sit. It is endless lists of things to memorize. We are, in this course, focused on structure. When we look at the core basis of your journey, if you're going into medicine, how many of you are going into medicine of some sort? It's kind of a rhetorical question. People don't take this course as an elective. Right? So if you're going into medicine, that means you're going to be treating patients in whatever your journey will end up being. Whether you're going to be a doctor, a nurse practitioner, a technician, whatever. It deals with the human body. And we look at anatomy and physiology. These are the core basis of your knowledge to be able to treat and help people heal. Anatomy is structure. Physiology is function. Right? So when people get a broken bone, what bone's broken? That's structure. How does it heal? That's physiology. So it is a very complex machine. The human body is probably one of the, if not the most complex machine that's on the planet. But it's a biological machine. And we can use and abuse it, and it still functions. But you know what? Exercise, eat right, die anyway. So, what you're about to get into is not like some of the other courses you may have had. It requires daily, intense study. When I say intense study, in a given week's time, you're going to be in this class 6 hours, any given week. The statistics say that you should put 4 to 5 hours off campus for every hour you're on campus. So you do the math. You're looking at 25, 30 hours study per week. Now, if you got a family, you got a job, whatever, that requires you to adjust your schedule quite a bit. Can you do it on less? I've seen it done, but for the most part, it is the bare minimum, 15 to 20 hours a week. Bare minimum. And even that, it depends on the student and their study habits. When you finish this course, you won't think the same, you won't speak the same, you will look at the world in a different way. This is not, oh, I'll study the night before or catch it the weekend before the test. That won't happen. How many of you have been in this course before? Look at those ahead of you. And I commend you for coming back. You know, a second dose of pain is always good. We joke about the pain, but the pain is you'll lose sleep, you'll lose weekends, you don't have any holidays. You still want to do this? That's what it takes. Because you're going into a career, not a job. What you're doing is learning the foundation information that's going to carry you for the rest of your working career. Not, I check that one off the box and move on to the next one. That's not this course. It may be for a history or some other type of course, but not this one. Because every patient in your future is going to be a comprehensive anatomy exam. Every one of them. One's going to come in with an ankle problem. The next one's going to have hip problems. Next one's going to have heart problems. Next one's going to have some type of stomach or lung. So you never know. It's like pulling a card. What am I going to see now? And then you go to the next one and you have to shift gears. So it's not fill and flush. It is fill and retain. Plug your ears so it doesn't pour out. Because you need this knowledge to be able to understand the clinical side of what you're about to embark on. And this is the easy stuff. You may have heard ugly rumors, but this is the easy stuff compared to your clinicals. Questions? Did I just bring the mood of the room down? Right? If this Okie can do it, anybody can. But you have to decide that you want to do this, that you're going to do this, and do the best that you can. You don't have to be the best in the class, but you need to be diligent. Did I touch something wrong? Okay. You have to be diligent and you have to be consistent. You have to study every day. You can't put it off. Because if you do, you'll get behind. And then you have to play catch up. And then you'll get more behind. You have to play catch up. And you get more behind. You have to play catch up. And pretty soon it's just a runaway train. So you need to be diligent and study something every day. Now in lecture and lab, you may have heard ugly rumors or stories. Probably half of them at least we started. Right? So when you look at the way the course is laid out, we have worked very hard for, several years now to refine and redesign this to be a better course for the student. This summer, we even got a little closer, and we've directed the lecture in a regional fashion, but you have a systemic textbook. But it worked out very, very well because it correlates with how your lab is directed. And they're married as close as we can get them. Right now, they're married to each other. What you're studying in lecture, you'll go up and you'll see it in lab. What a novel concept, right? In the past, we've tried some things where it even seemed like this was two different courses, right? So we've worked real hard as the entire anatomy staff to try and get them as close together as we can. And now it's almost to the point there's no more we can do. Now it's up to the student, right? You have a phenomenal amount of tools available to you. So please take use of them. When I was going through this course, you had a body and one of these. Because you didn't have the internet, didn't have computers, didn't have PowerPoints. You ever seen one of those classrooms that has those sliding chalkboards? Yeah, that's what I had. Now, the professor I had was wonderful, and he had an amazing talent. He could draw, netter quality pictures with his left hand, and he would use colored chalks. Right? He would draw with his left hand, but he would write the text with his right hand, and he would do them at the same time. So when he lectured, this is what you saw. And then when he was done, he would say, "And there it is," and walk out. If you had any questions, you'd run up and start sliding chalkboards to write down the notes you didn't get. So your generation has a phenomenal amount of tools available. It's a lot better than this. Questions? Man, are you guys... School starts Monday, right? Should be excited. I'm excited. I'm very excited. Because there's nothing better than cutting up a dead body. Right? Because you get to go through a journey that very few people in this country, let alone the world, get to do. You have a wonderful privilege, and those bodies, I like to call them angels, because the knowledge you learn from them is going to help you and your patients in the future. And those bodies will be the best professors you will ever have. And they'll never say a word to you. But you have to put the time into it. You get out of this class what you put into it. If you don't put much into it, we'll see you again. Or you'll go do something else. Right? Because who pays for your mistakes? The patient does. Right? Somebody's mother, brother, sister, child. One word we don't want to say in medicine is, oops. Or, I don't know. I don't remember that. You need to go down the hall to the next person. They might remember. Right? That's a word you don't want to hear in medicine. So I look forward to you guys next week in wherever class that you go to, because whoever you have as your instructor is a good quality instructor. They just have different teaching styles. But absorb as much as you can. Gather in groups, study in groups. Students tend to perform and survive if they have a good, strong study group, because you'll carry that study group through your clinicals. So yeah, be prepared, because we hit the ground running come Monday. Questions? Comments? Jokes? Okay. Thank you very much for me talking to you. What's that?
Will we get our syllabus on Monday, or is it online?
I would direct that question to Dr. Shear, because he is the big kahuna, the chief in charge. Okay? So he can answer that question for you. Any others?
We'll answer it here in a few minutes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Chambers.
Mute me.
Good to go.
Can you hear me?
In front of the screen.
Can you hear me? Is this on mic on just the camera?
Just a camera.
Sorry. I like the echo. Can you hear me now? I want to welcome you all to Human Anatomy. You are about to embark upon a journey that you can't wait to get through the course, but it's one course that you will always wish you're back in it. It's kind of a quirky thing, isn't it? I want to get back in that class with those dead people. But what you're going to find is it's the level of knowledge and change that your body, your mind, your whole essence, you're becoming someone who you're not. And that is your future self. See, you cannot stay the same person you are right now and make it in your career that you're choosing. You must become that person in your future. No one else is going to do it except you. Let me have you point to the person that is responsible for your own learning. That's the one that's going to make the change. How many people like to point excuses for your own failures? Once you get over that and say, I need to have a mirror in a little quiet spot and have a talk with that person and say, I need to change. See, you must take all of our efforts that we have brought forth, kind of like an obstacle course. You know, most of the military has that obstacle course in boot camp, and it's at the end. It's kind of that thing you got to get through. Do you know all the preparation for your body, mind, teamwork, all this is to get you through the end? What happens if you say, I'm not going to change, I'm not going to listen to them? What's going to happen to you on the obstacle course? You're going to fail and fail miserably. And the people are going to say, I'm going to help those that are helping themselves and leave you in the mud where you belong. Because think about that obstacle is that patient's health and well-being. And understand that it might be your own family member or your friend. Who are you going to entrust? Do you give blind trust to people you do not know for the health and care of your family and friends? Well, you're going to be that person to others. And they're going to give 100% expectations in you doing the best you can. So let me ask you this. What is your expectation of success for yourself? Oh, I just need 70% to get through this course. Stop that blood, 70%. Cut out 80% of that tumor. They'll be fine. That was a passing grade. What is your expectation? See, you have to exceed beyond what you thought you could do. I have seen so many, I call it the awakening of a student. They never thought they could learn so much. They always set their bar very low. You must set your bar high, as we try to as well, and meet your own challenges. Everybody here has the same exact opportunity as one another. We put forth all the resources and the efforts, the time. I'm telling you, a lot of time to bring you a course that is bar none the best anatomy, undergraduate at least, in Oklahoma. This is the best. And I'll put my C students up to anyone's A students. I'll guarantee they'll know more. But we don't want to settle at C. We want to settle to become the A student that you need to be, not want to be. It's need to be. You're going into professions that are very competitive. Do you think it's an easy ride getting into these programs? It is not. But I also see that when people get into the programs, it's no guarantee that they'll get through them. You look at the numbers between first and let's use nursing because it's a huge thing here, but many are going on to PA, medicine, dentistry, PAs, all the other letters you can think about. But you look at the attrition rates going from first to second semester, and I've talked to these nursing students and associations about this. What is it that a first to second semester nursing student doesn't succeed? A lot of times it's the ones that barely made it through their sciences. They did not have the foundation and understanding in which to draw upon a study skill, a life skill. See, you're not just doing something for the moment, it is a life skill. You will never stop learning. You'll ever increase your ability to learn more. It's that it is hard at any level you're at, but it progressively gets harder along your journey. But what makes it manageable is the increased knowledge that you are able to gain. And that empowers you to do more than you thought you could ever do. This course is that foundation of so many of these health science courses that you'll always come back to anatomy. A lot of times you're going to be using anatomy in what I call the physiology, the functional aspect, because you cannot have function without the structure. So form following structure, see, you have to have that structure set. And in doing so, in the clinical sciences, you're going to reflect upon down below at the physiology, but its foundation is anatomy. And how well you do in physiology is going to mandate how well you did in anatomy, chemistry, these kind of things. So other foundations have to be set, like putting footings in a new building. How strong you build your foundation now will determine how high your building will go. See, everything you do now will be a direct reflection upon your future. There's nothing you can do to change that except excellence, being successful, doing the best you can at every moment along the way. You cannot just, like we've talked about, there's no procrastination that has a line towards success. It's only failure. What does Yoda says?
Do or do not.
Do or do not. There is no try. It's be successful. Do what is necessary to become successful. There's no middle grounds. We have cards and these little plaques around the campus. It have commit. If you ever see the little tray, it's like an easel board. Grab one and read through that. It's fantastic. It talks about everybody has the intent. Who intends to be successful in anatomy in your prospective future? Raise your hand, right hand. We're going, yeah, there's your start, right and left. Raise your right hand if you intend to be successful. Hold it up. Hold on, I'm making a note here. As I see all hands raised, but some have a fleeting moment. They drop their hand. Oh, see, this is hard to raise my hand and hold it up. Well, understand, did I say to lower it yet? No, because there's another question coming after this. Let's see how well you can do. Push your chairs back a little bit. Raise your right hand and slap upon your left leg. Go ahead and do it. Let's see how good you guys are. Just, it was like, oh. Slap it like it's someone you don't like. There you go. That's better. No, I did not say to remove it. It was like, is that good enough? Now, with your left hand, I want you to vote if you actually did what I said. Now, I bet you 100% intended to do the right thing. Is that a correct statement? How many do you think knew they did a right statement or right action? Did you place your hand between your knee and your ankle? Or did I say thigh? I said leg. This is your thigh. This is your knee. This is your leg. But I did not know the difference. I thought it was that dangling thing down below the torso. I throw it out and I put my torso. That's how I walk. Right? See, anatomy. Okay, you can relax, release. Everyone's like, thank you. You can understand that. See, we bring to anatomy, as a lot of classes, a presumption. Maybe you have generalities of things. How many have used your body quite some time? Not. I picked it up at Walmart last week. This'll do. Like some zombie movie. But the thing is, you walk around and you have a general understanding of the human body. But anatomy is a descriptive science in which we have to communicate one to another. You have to write out on a patient chart. We have to know that when you write down, you're saying, it was their leg. No, it wasn't. You thought leg and it was a thigh. You misquoted in a chart. But I thought it was. It's not going to matter, is it, when you make these kind of mistakes? So, we have foundational classes that tend to now get the nomenclature, the naming of structures. Understanding this morphology, this structure of the human body, so that we can all be on the same page. Yes, they use the Latin, some Greek, to have a common, kind of a dead language that doesn't change, but it's developed a long time ago, so that we can all have the same talk. Like when I said, raise your, let me do right and left, right? The one that makes the L. Left. Okay, right hand, I had you raise the right hand, right? And if I said raise your left hand, you could probably do that. But do you think if you took that for granted and going into a pre-op, and you're the one going to mark which one has the thumb that has to be removed or the toe, and you mark the wrong side, is left and right important to the patient? When they come back and they have a necrotic left toe, and then their right good one's gone. And do you understand? How can these simple, we think simple as left and right matter? They do matter. And you're going to get in a course that when there's a bone, they'll say, what bone is it? What part of that bone is it? And is it left or right? It does matter. So you're going to have to understand that there sometimes is opposite sides, like the body has, left and right. So as you learn to understand this, you must spend the time, not just simple memorization of the name, but you need to start being a descriptive name to an object being a part of the body. Because one, we use visual for, we see the structure. Tactile, we have labs where you can actually feel the body inside and out, the models, the bones that we have. Tactically, see, a lot of information is gained. Audibly, we should be speaking these words. If you use only, let's say, one of these three, audio, visual, kinesthetic kind of learning, you're decreasing your mind's ability to learn and function. So when you come into class, is it an active or passive process to learn? Active. So if your intent is to learn, what must you do? Take a blank role in learning. An active role in learning. All right. In that active role of learning, there's the intent. But what is the action steps? Is the doing. See, there's no try, there's doing. And this goes from the intent to the before you commit to the action, you must have the commitment. So you must commit to success. You must commit to your studies that lead towards success. See, all students coming here have the intent of passing. But only the ones that get through truly committed towards their success. Does that make sense? So it's kind of like, I intend to get married to them. No, marriage is the commitment, the action step in which to do it. And does it happen just because you have the ring on your finger? Well, that's a marriage because I got a finger with a ring on it. Oh, no, I'm married. So they're unmarried, therefore, no work has to be done. Who's married in here? Everybody's like, yeah, all right. There's a lot of give and take there, right? It's a commitment towards another. Well, understand, your future self that you want to be, you got to marry to that person. You got to commit to become that person. Because if not, if you just intend to be them, you're going to have a bad relationship. And you'll never get there. So you must commit towards your future self. You must marry into that person. You get there about 85 years old. Hey, how you doing? We finally made it together. Are you committed to that long a journey? Oh, I'm just going to try for a couple of years, see how it works. I heard him that's a good job, make good money, so I think I'll just give it a try. You'll never make it to your successful journey. Guaranteed. Only those that commit towards your success, understanding that you yourself, like my mom says, we're three people, me, myself, and I. She was the only child. She goes, I wasn't alone. My kids go, you sound like grandma. Yeah, she's alone. I blame it on my mother. It's genetically. I must have been dropped as a child. No. Be quiet. I think I'll be an anatomy instructor. He has the same bumps I do. But the thing is, we're here to help you. We're really trying to guide you through a process. Learning doesn't have to be It's going to be painful, yes, but you can enjoy the pain. You can enjoy the changes that you're going to go through. Because you're going, like every scar that you have, isn't it a story? Hey, check this story. I'm going to show you this scar I got the other day. It's a story. Are they? Please no, please. But a scar is a story. So in a way, we're here to scar your minds. But guess who's doing the cutting? You are. We're like, place the knife here. Oh, I don't want to. Place the knife here. Okay, cut. Oh, look, I have a scar now. We just told you where to cut. But you have to do it yourself. We're not going to do it. That's your job. See, learning is what you do. The scarring of your mind is what you do to yourself. Now, you allow us to come in and help scar your minds. We will do so well. And guess what? The ones that have allowed us to have that change, the scars that will be with you forever. See, scars, these are the good scars. It's the learning. It's the understanding. It's the hard work and pain and efforts you put towards your learning. Those are the good scars because you can tell the story. See, when you gather information, knowledge in, you can't hoard it. You got to give it away. And every time you give it away, every time you do a procedure with that knowledge, you strengthen. It's like you re-scar yourself. Oh, yeah. Isn't it great? And it gets stronger. You'll continue to do this throughout your entire journey. So, many people that are before you, thousands, tens of thousands that have been before you of great success, are leaders in the field, our students. They're the leaders out there. They're going to be your jobs as you are going to be the, what do you call them, the bosses, the charge nurses, the department directors, the ones that are going to be hiring. You're going to be those people. Because remember, there's a lot of schools feeding in other places, but you're going to be the leaders in the field. Not just, I want the bottom job that no one else wanted, but I got work at least. Is that your goal? Have you ever thought about that? I want the job that no one else wants, the one that has the highest attrition rate. That means they can't keep people in that position, but that's the job I aspire for. The bare minimum. So what is it that you aspire for? See, that's that future. See, in your mind, you have to put this goal of who you want to be and have it very strong so you can make that commitment with that person. All these efforts are on you. We tell you it takes all this time. It does. It takes more time and effort than you realize. You only know this in retrospect. Yeah, they were right. Do you want to wait till your first or second failed test before you come talk to us? What can I do to pass? You could have came to me 3 weeks ago. Yeah, but, who's the yeah, but syndrome? Yeah, but dabba do. You must take charge in your own self. We can't do it. All we can do is you come to us with a problem and we can help direct you. We have tutoring programs now. You have, and Dr. Chambers alluded to it, you have a lot more information available on your side. And it's true. It was a pen, pencils, and gobs of paper. That's what we had to go through. And you'd have maybe an atlas if they had one. And they were a lot more expensive than what you guys have to. You talk about your books being expensive. Well, you go back 20, 30 years ago, those atlases were a few $100s. That's a lot more than what you pay to this day and age. So understand you have a lot available. I'm going to show you where just a couple of areas are. Let's see. I'll open another window. Online classroom. I was working late last night to help answer her question. She didn't know she answered it in her past. She sent me a virtual. Did you know you sent me a virtual email and I followed up on it? Yeah, you're time travelers. Sorry, I was watching these shows that were about time travel. Yeah. Gotta hurry. See, she is a time traveler. Darn this thing, I can't see.
I checked the other day and I didn't see it online. So figured that out.
No, I got it. You sent it tomorrow. Somewhere in here. I'm going to just pick up one of our, I got all the lecture sections uploaded with the first unit PowerPoints. I got your new syllabus. Those are in Dr. Chambers' class. We have a tentative possible, that'll be sections 108 and 504. It's a tentative room change. He will post on his online classroom, or I will when we get confirmation. So you go to your online classroom. Does everybody know how to get to the online classroom? You must activate your OK account. Then you go to the, here I'll do another one. You go to our main website, go under Students. You scroll down over here where it says Campus Online. You go Online Classroom. You put in your OKey account. It's something at okstate.edu. And that is going to be your email that you need to check and you utilize. Because any communication that you have with us needs to go through that little portal. And then you set the password. It's a goofy password. It has to change every 6 months and stuff. So just do the best you can. I'll put my own password. You'll be about 10 minutes trying to find one that works. But anyway, once you log on, it's going to look similar to, where'd my thing go? This. Kind of like this. And you scroll down look for the 2014 fall and look for it'll be a biology 2214. That'll be your classroom. You'll have one for your lecture and one for your lab. This is where we're going to post your grades. This is where we put information on. The lecture side is where we put all the information on. The lab side is pretty much just an extra syllabus, and it's the lab instructor. You might have different lab instructors because we have, I don't know, 17 or so sections and only 6 lectures. So, you're scattered all throughout the week. So my instructors for the lab will be posting your lab grades there. There's only a slot on your lecture side for lab total at the end. So whatever you make in lab at the end, it has a 500-point cap. You can actually make more, but it gets capped. And that's a good thing. If you can make 500 points, and many students do, well, that's what we put on the other side. So 500 points are available on both sides. So you need to divide your studies equally, but both of them have a synergism together. You're basically studying both lecture and lab simultaneously. I'm going to pull up what one of these look like. So when you pull up your, I'm going to do this as a student. So this is kind of more what it'll look kind of like this right here. This is your course. This will be your section number for lecture. I do not use this bar very much except for the grades. This is set up where we can develop an online class. We do have online classes on campus. So it's just a general portal that's used for everything. In this course, we pretty much just use the news And this is where I post everything. Here's the updated syllabus. Study well. That's my kind of mantra. Study well. This is your, so I can save target as. And I want to say this. Everything that has the ability to download it, save it to your computer or a flash drive, have it available. Because after the semester, you won't have access. And believe me, you're going to want to continue to study. When you get into board exams, another class, maybe another unit, maybe it's 5 years down the road and you're changing departments. And you're going from, let's say, ER to OB. Oh boy, I better study those chapters again. So you're going to want to keep your books. You're going to want to keep all your sciences, all your information, because you're going to need them down the road. Something like that. So you save it. What I'm going to do is just open it, just so you can see it. And on the front here, see, these are the two courses. We're just not sure which one yet. We're trying to get into the one that's in parentheses. It's just a little nicer classroom. I probably won't have confirmation until later today, or maybe Monday morning. So just kind of take a look there. The Master in A&P, did you talk to him about some?
I'm about to.
Okay. Mike's going to talk to you about the Master in A&P. This is a website. Can I see that right there? It's this access right here. This is an intricate part of the resources available. There's some fantastic things on here that's going to facilitate your learning. It's not just about, here's the notes, listen to what we say, and that's it. No, you got a lot of activities and all kinds of things that can help you. When you can't come to a tutoring session or an open lab, there's practice anatomy labs there. So you have it available on your computer, anywhere you go. This is how you do your access code is right here. This is the course ID to register this. Here's our contact information. My boss, department head, Dr. Burkala. I'm the lead of anatomy and physiology. This is my contact information. These are our instructors and the sections that they teach. So you can find, I would say, print it out, highlight yours so you know where you need to be. And you want to have this with your materials. Lecture and lab, bring it to everyone. Because sometimes you're going to need to get some information from here. The next is going to be with our actual labs. We have HT302 and next door down the hall HT306. This is just correlating the letters here, correlate to these letters off to the side. So it's kind of like which area are you in. Let's see. So that's just to show you kind of when they meet. So we know at any given time that particular room in a week schedule, this is how busy it is. Right below these two rooms, this is HT306. This is my statement about open lab schedule. Mike's going to talk to you about this. He's my main guy dealing with my anatomy lab as far as my techs. He's in the training of the techs. He's the one, and I want to commend you, Mike, on orchestrating this. He's been really helping us focus our success towards you. We have our schedule here for Open Lab. It's tentative, but this is what we're going to start with, and we're going to start working this schedule. Basically, the exceptions during certain breaks, open lab. These are open labs. Extra time you can come, and he'll talk to you about how you come into lab. He has a Twitter account for scheduling. Last minute, something comes up. Always, oh, I better check. If I got to drive an hour, maybe you want to check. Because that's what will be posted. Like a tech had a flat tire, and they got sick, and their child's had to go to the hospital. They couldn't be here. Well, they'll call Mike, and he'll post it if no one can cover. Here's the syllabus. It's both for lecture and lab, so you have one syllabus for both areas. Read through this. This is just about your materials that he has, safety equipment, what to wear what not to do. This is some of our learning objectives, lecture lab. It's a book. Over the years, it keeps getting longer. And it's usually what people shouldn't do. We then have to put it in words. This is what you shouldn't do. So over the time, failure to attend class may result in the student not passing the course. Want to pass? Go to class. Look at that. If the student fails to attend lectures and or labs first 2 weeks, they may be academically withdrawn from the course. Failure to attend. Oh, I'll show up after my own vacation and find out you're not there no more. See, we're here to direct those that have committed to their success. If you're playing a game, like I'll just pretend it's school. No, go somewhere else. I like the words of the president. And I asked her a question in this big meeting in front of all the faculty and staff. I said, what would you tell a student that comes here and not really committed to learning? Maybe with just a C attitude. You know what she said to everybody? She said, I would tell that student, this is the president. You need to go somewhere else if you're not committed to an A. Doesn't mean you're going to attain an A, but it means you need to commit yourself towards that success. See, too many people just pretend, don't do the work, and then complain to everybody. And I want to tell you, all the way up, our whole administration is focused on success of the student. And when we have a whole group of students in a lab being successful, and there's 2 that are not, and they're complaining the loudest, what kind of story does that show? You see, we talk to each other. We communicate and we try to be on the same picture throughout this whole course, as well as department, division, and campus. And we're here committed to your success. Read through the syllabus. It's long and laborsome, but you know what? This is your future, not ours. All this is there to help you attain success. It shows you the structure of let me get through this, like how the class is organized, how the tests are organized, 1,000 points available. This is for those that are my EMT students that have already took the AMP. It's a 5-hour lecture, AMP, and then they take our labs separate. So we'll have in a few of these sections an EMT student that you might not see in this lecture. They take a different one. The book is like that fat. So they're going into paramedics and stuff like that, and echocardio and all these things. But they take the same labs. So that's their skill. Don't say, hey, look, I got 500 points. Well, for lecture and lab, that's not too good, is it? So don't look at the wrong scale. This is for those that are in both lecture and lab. Biology 2214, this is your skill here. This is Biology 1212. And believe me, people have done that. And they thought they were passing.
I'm sure you have a question.
Oh, yes.
So it's capped at 500 for lab and then 500 for lecture?
Mm-hmm. It's fantastic. How's this? And thank you for that email tomorrow. Here it is. Yeah, it's awesome. And if the other emails I got from some of you, study harder and quit your complaining. Did you get that one? It was like a week or 2 later. Sorry. All right. Let me just roll to the bottom. I'm almost done. Yeah. This is your schedule at a glance of the whole semester, when our breaks are, from the 17 weeks we're here. It's actually 16 on campus because of the breaks, but just chronologically 17. This is your lecture right here. This is where we did a lot of work in the spring, is bringing this schedule to you right here. It took a lot of work. I had to get a new edition, updates. And bear with me if some of the page numbers I missed, my eyes got crossed. It was page to page, trying to update this in a hurry. So this is units. We have 4 units here, and we got 4 units in lab. And this is where the big change happened, is correlating the lecture and then organizing it to where it lines up nicely. You have your work cut out. It starts off strong and fast. There's no easy. It's just prepare. Like I think of it like a drag racer. Do they just kind of just idle out, or do they hit all the throttle, full guns, full blast all the way to the end? That's anatomy. And understand, what was the average for summer?
Lecture lab. Lecture was 83 average.
83 average lecture. Lab?
Lab, probably 90.
90 average. See, you got to understand, what you hear other students complain and talk about, oh, don't take that. There's not much. Who heard that there's a lot of failure from this course? How many have heard that there's more success? A lot more. There's a lot more A's and B's than we have D's and F's. Who heard that one before? See, it's maybe who you listening to. What crowd are you listening to? A successful crowd? And I'm telling you, from your future, you get out in the field and talk to who was successful. Or do you talk to the people that failed or can't make it through a course? I want to listen to them for advice. Who not to take? Think about that. Who are you following? But anyway, this is our schedule. Yes?
And quite often when people fail classes, they feel more obligated to shout out to the world how awful the class is.
In the old adage, misery loves. Why? Because they want pity. What do successful people do? They tend to help those around themselves that are helping others and themselves. And that creates a strong network, doesn't it? And it's almost like, just like unsuccessful people, and I've seen this, shun successful people, the opposite is true. There's only so much you can do to help those that don't want to help themselves. And it comes to a point where I can't help you. And you're going to see that in your lab groups. You're going to create these groups. And there'll be that one person that never brings anything. It's almost like they're draining you of your life essence. Because they never give. See, when you work hard and your efforts and your lab group and your partners are doing the same and you're bouncing ideas off each other, it's a synergism. And then it's like you get this parasite. See, you want a commensalism or a symbiotic relationship of some sorts that are beneficial. You can tolerate one that doesn't drain you, but then there's the one that drains you because they don't want to put any effort towards you. Focus on developing successful study skills, study groups. Utilize all these references and all these things that we have available to you. I tend to get long-winded. I will try to end it with thank you for being here. Thank you. And by the way, I never get applause in class. So thank you. You know why the booze are there? It's because and I know that Dr. Chambers and Dr. Harris, we force people to come out of their comfort zone. We force people to take that active role in which they all say, I want and I commit to it. But when it comes down to actively do it, right? When I do the same things in class, raise your right hand. You know that there's usually 20% that does nothing. They'll just sit there and look at me and I look at them back, say what? And they get mad, and then I go like this. And they get mad, more mad. Why? I'm like a mirror. I just put a mirror and they're like, I don't like this. But successful students that do the same. Thank you. Woo-hoo. Isn't it fantastic to be in vigor by your own success or your own failure? Well, show it.
I'll do it tomorrow.
Once again, thank you, Dr. Chair and Dr.
See you.
Chambers. All right, after that, we're going to go ahead and talk about a few basics about class, lab, what open lab is, what tutoring lab is, and then we're going to dive right into your coursework. We'll go through chapters 1, appendix 5, appendix 1, and chapter 2, and I think chapter 1 of your lecture book. So I hope you guys are ready to talk really fast. All right, first, what's going on right here is OSU-OKC Anatomy. This is our Twitter account. What I use this for is basically just quick updates. I'm here probably about 9 hours a day, although I don't spend my life here. I'm here all the time. I can't always post emergency situations that happen in the lab, so if an open lab needs to be shut down and I can't post it or tell your class directly, I will use Twitter. It's not required for you to use Twitter, of course, but it's the fastest way for me to get information and get it to you. Also on top of that, we have OSU-OKC _ tutor me. That is actually Kyle at SSOC. On there you'll see a lot of things that she talks about, ideas, or express workshops, also any tutoring that's going on, anything that's happening that is pertinent to you. We try and retweet each other because we're friends.
I just tweeted you guys.
Thank you. On my side, what I do is I try and talk about Open Lab when Open Lab is ready for you. Also, if we have a test coming up, I'll also post it. For example, next week is 2 weeks away, don't delay. I'll tell you exactly what time we're going to go over. And if we do any chapter tests, or if you have a quiz coming up, I remind you of what pictures you can take. So, all that's gone. Go away. Shoot. Why are we here? You're here obviously because you heard or you heard from someone else that this class is difficult. It is. It is difficult. However, it's only as difficult as you make it. I cannot reiterate that any more clearly. I personally took this class 10 years ago. 10 years ago, I made a 99. Not this class, a different school. But I made a 99. How did I do that? I had 15 hours that semester, and I studied every day, and I probably slept probably 3-4 hours a night. It's hard. It takes a lot of time. And I was working part-time, but we're not talking about me. This class is difficult. So, how do you want to succeed? You want to succeed in class by coming to class. Obviously, that's very simple. Just come to class. If you can't come today, tell your professor before that happens. Say, I'm not coming to class today. What do you recommend me to look over? I'll look over that and be ready the next time. Because things do happen, man. You understand? You can't be at every class, but go to as many classes as you can. Time management. Time management is so important for you. You have no idea. You have to manage your time between your life, your school life, and whatever else is going on. Obviously, this class is going to take a bulk of your time. So you're going to have to manage this time. The study skills that she was talking about with time management are going to be imperative at this point. Like everyone said, a commitment from you is necessary. I'm saying all this again because it's not stressed enough. Commitment is necessary. You have to commit to yourself. If you want to be successful, make yourself successful. If you want to fail, then you know exactly what to do. Nothing. All right. Let's start again. What is Open Lab? Open Lab is basically, as I was saying earlier, a period in which we talk about where you review all the material yourselves. Think of it more as a library than anything else. Open Lab will be the same area as your class time for lab. And you'll be in there, you'll study on the cadavers, you'll study on the models, you'll study on the bones, whatever it is that you're studying. However, technicians there are not responsible for your learning. You are responsible for your learning. So it's up to you what you'd like to do while you're in there. The tutoring labs are different from the open labs. What are tutoring labs? Tutoring labs are an aquarium in which we have a tutor assigned specifically to that lab to help you study. We have a sign up. Are we still doing sign up online? Or did you just want them to come in?
Yeah, it's changing though. We're switching software, so it's not signing up for an appointment right now is not available right now, but it will be soon because we're switching softwares.
So probably in the next 2 weeks you can start signing up for a tutor and you'll have one assigned to you.
It should be next week. I'll just have to set it up.
Okay.
So yeah.
So it's Mondays and Fridays. That's the 2 times that we have tutoring lab open. Now,
So do we need to like sign up for a spot in that tutoring lab?
in tutoring labs, yes,
Okay.
because we have to restrict the number of
Yeah.
people we have in there. If not, it gets way like in that house.
Okay.
Okay, so is it like going to the SSOC?
For tutoring labs, yes.
Because I've done before, like for algebra and stuff, like I'll sign up for a tutor and then I never see anybody.
Okay. I don't know what would happen. That would be me that you would talk to.
Okay.
So, but we're switching software. It's not the same sign-up system. So,
Hopefully
Well,
those
sometimes
issues-
there's just like a bunch of people in there and then they can't
yeah.
just,
This is just one tutor per lab, so it'll be much harder for that.
It's not going to be as crazy. We're
Yeah.
minimizing it to 6 students per session. It'll be 2 sessions for every 2 hours. So we're breaking it down. Open lab, when we come to open lab, you'll find this book, Open Anatomy Log. In it, we'll have this sheet right here that will tell you what classes that there are. You will put your lab group. Lab groups are lettered A through what? K? N? O? L and D? I'm not sure. So it's pretty basic. It just says date, time in, time out, your name. What would we call it? PC. There it is. Name and then lab group on the very end. Very simple things. To be allowed in open lab, you must have an OSU-OKC ID. Who does not have one? You should get one. The other way to get into the lab is to have a copy of your schedule. So either you use your D2L on your phone or a paper schedule and a valid state ID. Why does this matter? Yep.
My ID is actually still work, it will still work, right?
No.
I need to get an actual, okay. They
Yeah.
don't get it.
Not for us.
Okay, so I need to get it.
Right. Your question?
That's my question.
Yeah. We don't take the OK State's IDs. Why? Because some of their students come here and try to use our cadavers. It's happened before. So we have to limit the amount of people who come into the lab. On top of that, these are state requirements by the Will Body Program enforced upon us by OK State, and that's the only reason we have these bodies is because we facilitate the needs of they. Is your question?
No.
Okay, sorry. We reviewed the open lab log. So the schedule I gave you, you might have noticed on Dr. Shear's syllabus that it was different. So Dr. Shear's rules supersede mine. So if Dr. Shear wants to close the labs on Wednesday and Thursday, we will close the labs. He said tentative because it just depends on how many of you wish to come in, or if we're behind and what's happening. So we can open those up. So be mindful of the changes in that. All right. So how to use your materials. Who brought their stuff with them? Great. Let's go over the first one. In my hand, I have the 8th edition of Human Anatomy. If you have 1 edition shy, if you're in the 7th edition, that's fine. If you're in the 6th edition, okay. If you're anything older than that, you're going to have a little bit of trouble because they're actually implanted new systems into this that actually correlate with mastering A and P. When you open up your book, it's just going to be table of contents, very simple, flipping through your authors. Where am I? The new science. Spotlight figures, you can find that on Mastering the AMP, which I'll show you in a second. And then the newest part is text media integration. Text media integration uses the QR codes you can have on your smartphone. It'll actually pop up a little vignette, I suppose, on something that you can go over, either just a review of the bones, so it talks about it real quick, you get a flash of it, so you can go review everything you need to do. Also integrated into the book is Mastering the AMP. So just down here a second. So I'll show off Mastering AMP right now. Mastering AMP, you just go to masteringAMP.com, you sign up for other classes. Mine looks a little bit different from yours. You'll either click e-text or study area. Once you hate it. Let's try it again. There we go. E-text. Basically, it's going to be almost the same to the book that we have in your hand. This is for students who don't have a book right away. I don't recommend you relying on this. It's not going to be that useful, but it does allow you to review some things. You see, it looks just like it does in the textbook. You can go over all the systems, everything, just a quick study guide there. Here we have, there we go. Then we go to the study area of my AMP. Pops up this system. It has the homes, it's the project reports. I just popped up a pre-test. It also has all of anything else. Reviews, quizzes, post-tests, even chapter activities. This is something for you to do if you just need a quick fix to say, okay, I'm studying for a lecture, I'm not getting it, what am I missing? Take a test. You take the test and you notice not the questions you're missing, the type of questions you're missing. Because in lecture and lab, you're going to have different kinds of questions. You're going to have objective questions, subjective questions, multiple choice, true or false. You need to figure out which ones are particular to you that you don't understand and why. That's why I recommend Mastering AMP. The other thing I love to use is PAL. Now, PAL is recommended but not required as a purchase. I would use PAL if you're unable to enter the cadaver labs for whatever reason, for scheduling, or you just can't get off. PAL actually has human cadaver pictures for you to review. Let's start on the lower limb here, since that's where we start first in class. Up here you see self-review, which lets you click through all the films, or the slides, for you to study. You also have quizzes and lab practicals. When you click on one,
Fascia lata.
it actually tells you how to pronounce that, which actually helps a lot with spelling, because Latin is almost entirely as you say it, as you spell it, but it just depends on your background, how much language you had. I, for instance, speak 4 languages, which I don't expect any of you to do, but I find it quite easy to, once I hear something, I'll be able to spell it a little easier. So let's do something else.
Crural fascia.
Then it also allows you to go to different levels. We'll go to something deeper. No, doesn't want to. Fine. It's going to play a video.
Vastus lateralis is the lateral member of the muscle group of the anterior thigh known as the quadriceps femoris.
Double-clicking anything that has a video next to it will pop up that sub-screen and actually give you a slide review over it. Now, I have said this once before. I only recommend this if you cannot attend overlap. Nothing's going to replace the feeling of cadaver in your hands as you're trying to study it. You will remember it even more clearly because you're using tactile, visual, and auditory learning as you're working through it. So, does anyone have any questions on how to use PAL or mastering AEP? I went through it really quick.
Are those things like single use, like so you don't use it for the semester, or can you, like, once you buy it, can you keep using it?
PAL definitely for sure, and I believe that you need a course ID, but I think once you log into it, it has an expiration date for mastering AEP, but I'm not 100% sure.
Is your mastering AEP in that book, like with access code or
When
whatever?
you buy a new one, you do. If not, you have to do the access code. You would have to purchase a separate access code, which is also sold.
Okay.
So, those are those two. Let's leave all this behind. Now let's move into the other course materials. Who has an atlas? Atlases are going to be separated into different parts of the body and everything going on. So it just depends on what area you're having to look at would depend on what side you are. At the very bottom we have plate numbers. The plate numbers should vary a little bit between editions of the book. I have an older edition, but it's my favorite. Like I said, I did this 10 years ago and I still use this book because I love it so much. Basically, this is going to have more information than required in the course. What does this matter to you? You have to use this paired with your laboratory manual in order to find structures that you wouldn't be able to find on your own. Meaning, you should already know a little bit of what you're talking about before you get to lab in order to know what's going on. So, let's talk about the lab manual and the steps we need.
Is there any difference in the lab manuals than there was say last spring?
These lab manuals haven't been changed since 1985. That's fine. But the only difference between the 1214 and the 2214 is that we talked to administration when they realized that this is not a freshman level course, then we actually bumped it to 22. That's going to happen. So in it, it's going to be separated into objectives, which are just your goals for every section, assigned structures, and your word list. Origins, insertions, actions, which we call OIAs, and review questions. Oh, I forgot one. My fault, though. Assigned structures described. What that's for. My handwriting's terrible. I'm sorry. So, does anyone have any clue where we would start? If we're coming up to our lab manual, just before classes happen, and we're trying to review some things that we're about to learn the next day. Incorrect. Try again. Incorrect. Try again.
Sorry, what's the second one say?
Word list. You'd actually start on assigned structures described. That's number one. Why is it number one? It's going to have all the details that you need in order to understand what's happening. The word list is good for an objective point, for you to review all the things and look and use your atlas and the concept. But you need to start with assigned structures described, number one. Read it and reread it. If you need to highlight, highlight. I highlight mine. I actually make a whole bunch of tabs in mine. Mine is probably a big mess. But I make tons of notes. I recommend you do the same. What do you do next then, if that's number one? No guesses? Number two should be OIAs. OIAs, or origins, insertions, actions, will actually help you understand the assigned structure and script. When you understand where the muscles, especially, where they originate, where they insert, you'll understand the actions that they move upon. If I have a muscle that attaches to my shoulder and connects to my elbow, what am I going to move? My arm. It's pretty easy. Number one. Number two, what would be number three?
Do we not do innervation in lab?
This is not required for tests, but if your nerves are, we consider them as a separate parts, you have to memorize them on your own. Does that make sense? We call them OIAs, we group them together, but the nerves we teach as actions, and some of the muscles you have to know what nerves specifically act them, but not all of them. That's why OIAs are grouped as OIAs instead. Make sense? It's almost like nerves is a chapter. That's not. Number three is wordless. When you get to level lab or in class, you'll have your lab manual. You have already read before class. You went through your OIAs to get a better understanding of how it all works. And then you're going back to the beginning of your lab manual, and you'll see your word list. Tons and tons of words. The process to do is go to your word list, look for it on the atlas. You know where it is on the atlas? Go to the bottom. But how are you going to carry all these books when there's all these things that else things are going on? You're going to try and touch something, look it out, try and touch your book, you got manual. Study groups. One person stand there, read off the word list. The other person has backup, the atlas. The third and fourth people are studying. They're being tested, and then you rotate. You're going to need all these resources at the same time to be able to study. That's one method of doing it. Another method of doing it is doing lab manual and atlas at home, coming into the cadaver lab and going at it by yourself. It's a little harder, but it's not impossible. You would just do the same thing. You're like, okay, I need to learn the first five of the upper extremities, so I need to know brachioradialis, superior pronator, and everything else that needs to go on. And then you start studying that way. After you get all that down, then you move on to number four. What do you think number four is? Almost. Review questions. 3 days before your first test, this should already be done. 1, 2, 3, 4. You should already have done all that. 3 days before your test. You are ready to go. You know all the review questions. The ones you don't know, you actually ask your study group. Or you ask your professors, like, you know what, I actually had a problem in understanding this question. Can you help me break it down? Sure. They will be glad to help you with your review questions. At the end of the third day before the test, you go into objectives last. Why objectives last? The objectives will tell you the goals of each assignment. If you already complete those goals, then you know that you're solid for your test. Or, if you don't know everything of that objective, you know you missed something. So, those last 3 days before that test, you're getting the little pieces that you forgot, or you didn't study, or that you missed, or that you need to review. That way, the bulk of your studying has already been completed. We talk about procrastination and dedication. Well, this is going to be where you're going to dedicate your time. Number one, assign structures. 2, OIAs and nerves. 3, the word list. 4, review questions. 5, objections. That should set you in a pretty good spot to study for that. In lecture, you're going to do the same thing, only with your lecture book. You're going to read all the course material, take everything that's pertinent from it, and go to 10 your lectures and write down your notes. Then you'll do your review questions, maybe a few answer your E&P questions online, just to get you going and say, oh, you know what, I have problems with these word problems, really bad. I need to review how to study for those. All these combined should get you ready to go. Here's another resource. I don't find it useful. I'm actually a tactile visual learner, and I draw all my structures by hand. I don't find this very useful. You might. It just depends on your personal learning style. I can't locate for that. Also, we have a diet atlas right here. These aren't useful. They're just not useful. Don't buy them. Your most useful is going to be your atlas. Something you might want to do, because I do it, for those who are visual, tactile learners, I draw everything. And I mean everything. Everything on the board, everything that's going on, I draw it. This whole thing is just my anatomy. That's all I put in here. You'll be tested on drawings as well as knowing where everything is in the body. You'll be tested on how the body is laid out. Normally you're drawing our vessels. Here we have 2 on the upper extremity. Then we have blood flow as it travels through the heart. You'll be expected to draw it, to write it, and recite it. Does anyone have any questions so far how to use all this? That's pretty set out good? Great. Yeah?
You know, for the coloring book is right online, if we wanted to just get one for
I don't know. But you can Google the images and just print them off. Yeah. That's always an option.
Yeah, it's really cheap, and I have one, and I don't use it because I'm just gonna use it for reasons to me, so.
Yeah. I don't think it's very useful.
I use it for my students.
Other resources for you to use are anatomyzone.com. Anatomyzone.com is made by a British professor, quite brilliant. Some of his pronunciations are different as we pronounce them here in America, but the spellings, of course, are all the same. He also has a YouTube video. You can also find him at Anatomy Zone on YouTube. There's also apps for your tablets if you have an iPad or maybe a Kindle, whatever you're using. There's also apps for them. There's range from about $7.99 to $21.99, depending on your skill level. And you can even find some free apps that will help you just in case. Say you have like 30 minutes to kill and you just need to pop through something real quick. There you go. Flip through it and go over the information you already know. Don't try to learn new information at that point. And also the PowerPoint slides that we made available to you on D2L. Those, of course, are going to be available for your review. So now we're going to take tests. Who's ready? Can you help me pass these out here? I have 2 instructions. 1, do not open this. Number 2, follow the instructions on the test. When I say go, you go. You have 4 minutes to complete this test. It's only the first page. Remember, do not open these until I say so. I guess you don't get it. Cool. Everybody? Everybody have a test? And begin. First page only. Free test. Three minutes left. Two minutes left. Time. Who didn't write their name on the front of this packet? Raise your hand. You just failed your test. In anatomy, you're going to have very specific directions. If you fail to do these directions, you will fail. When Dr. Scheer was talking about left and right, that's minus half off. When we're talking about putting the name muscle, vein, artery, or nerve at the end of the term, you've got to have minus half off. When the lowest score I've seen since I've been here is a negative 20. Do you want negative 20? No, follow directions. Very easy. That's what this exercise is half about. How many found this test really easy? Good, that's what I expected. This pre-test is actually just so I can see which one of you who has base knowledge of anatomy, who knows how to answer science questions, and who has trouble taking tests. So far, everyone looks pretty good. Let's go over the answers real quick. It's going to be super easy, really fast. Number 1, letter A, posterior. Letter B, medial. Letter C, superficial. D, impermeable. E, color, which is cephalic. F, nosocomial infection is Lyme disease, for acronym. G, zoonosis, the common cold. Does anyone does not understand why these answers are what they are? Good. The next one, I'm going to have you guys answer. Just shout them out, it's fine. 2A, eponyms. Correct. Frontal. That's right. Squamous. Good job. Square shape. Renal. Kidney. Oculus. Eye. Gestation. Taste. And apoptosis. Great. Did anyone have any problems understanding what those terms mean? All right. Number 3. 1, frontal. 2, mid-sagittal. You have to specifically say mid-sagittal because it cuts the body directly in half. And 3, transverse. Of course, these are specific to anatomy, which we're just trying to give you a start off. We're about to hop in directly. Who missed 2 or less? You have an above average stance on science language. Good. Who hit around 3 to 5? That's average. That's going to be where everyone falls. And anyone at less than 5? You're going to have to work a little bit harder when you come to anatomy because everything's so foreign. It's not something to be ashamed of. It just means you just have to work that much more. All right. On the front of this, you're going to have some space. Go ahead and go back to the first page. I'm going to give you 3 definitions. I'm only going to repeat them once. It's up to you to write them down how fast it's going to go. Gross anatomy, the study of organs, parts, and structures of a body that are visible to the naked eye, also called microscopic anatomy. When you're studying, this is what you're going to be learning. Who had problems hearing me or didn't be able to write all that down? Then you're doing it wrong. Listen to the whole definition correctly first, then hit your pen to the paper. This will force your body to actively listen to what I'm trying to say. Then your hand can go along and move it along on its own. Why? You've been writing it all your life. You don't need your brain to into what you're writing down, but you need to hear what I'm saying first. So let's try again, without pens. Gross anatomy. The study of organs, parts, and structures of the body that are visible to the naked eye, also called microscopic anatomy. You may write. Were you able to retain more this time? That's a tip that you can use while in lecture. He's going to be writing along the way, and unless someone asks a question, he will not pause. So it's up to you to listen to the correct information. Whether he repeats it, that's definitely something you need to write down. Or if he tells you specifically, this is something you need to look over, then you know you definitely need to be writing that down. Does anyone need me to repeat that definition one more time? One more. Gross anatomy. The study of organs, parts, and structures of a body that are visible to the naked eye, also called microscopic anatomy. Incidentally, that's the anatomy that we tend to focus in on lab. We will talk a little bit about the cell structure of muscle, bones, and everything else, but that's mostly in lecture. There's 2 types of gross anatomy. There's systemic and regional. Let's go over systemic. Systemic anatomy, an approach to studying organ systems, i.e. digestive or cardiovascular systems. That's how lecture is going to work. The book actually is set up to where it's work on organ systems. You have the skeletal system, your cardiovascular system, respiratory. That's how this book is designed. Regional anatomy, the study of regions of the body. An example, upper limb or lower limb. This is also called topiographic anatomy. That's what you're going to be learning in lecture. In the lab. We'll go over topographic anatomy or regional anatomy. We start off with the lower limb and then move on from there. Is everyone ready to go on? Because that's the easiest part of this. All right. So now we're going to go over terms of direction. Terms of direction you can find in the book, depending on what edition you are. It's going to be in the first few pages, also in 3 tables. In your lab manual, it's going to be the first section we start off with. So just shout out the answers as we go. We're going to try to go through all of them as fast as we can. Number 1, anterior. Front or before. Posterior. Or behind. Dorsal. In the human body, it's also called posterior. In ventral. The front or belly side. Superior. Above. Or at a higher level than, when we're referring to something else. Inferior. Below. Or at a lower level if we're referring to something else. Cephalic. Toward the head. That's a good guess. Cephalic means toward the head. Caudal. Toward the tail. Humans don't have tails, but we do have a tailbone, which we call the coccyx, or as some people call the sacrococcyx joint. It's fused together. But when we say caudal, we mean towards the tailbone. Some of these terms of direction are actually quite easy. Some of them are a little more complicated. We'll move on to the next one. Medial.
To the midline.
Midline. Towards the midline, in the human body. Lateral. Away from the midline. Distal. It means away from an attached base. That's the kicker there, an attached base. So say for instance I have a water hose, and my water hose is connected to my house, but I can't quite reach the back of my yard, so I get another water hose. So if this water hose is there, I connect another water hose, and then my spout is actually distal to the house, as is the second water hose is more proximal, or this next one is proximal, closer to the body, or it's closer to an attached base. Typically when we use proximal and distal, we mean towards an attached base, or sometimes they could also be inferred to mean center. So go ahead and I'll take that. Superficial.
Surface.
At, near, or relatively close to the body surface. Deep. Toward the interior of the body, farther into the body. So as you see, these terms of directions are actually quite easy, but when you're reading your lab manual, these are the terms that we're going to use to describe where the muscles are, where the organs are. So you need to be comfortable enough to where it says, starting at the meningeal, move laterally and deep to, you need to understand what exactly it's asking you to. It says start in the middle of your chest, move outward, and then go down, or deep into the body. The last one is anatomical position. Anatomical position is the position in which we refer to the cadavers, and the laboratory manual will talk about anatomical position in reference to. We'll define this as the position in which the person or body is standing upright, looking straight ahead, eyes forward, feet together, arms down to the side, hands open, fingers straight, with the palms facing forward, and eyes ahead. Standing upright, looking straight ahead, eyes forward, feet together, arms down at the side, hands open, fingers straight, and palms faced forward. We have to define anatomical position because the cadavers actually are not in anatomical position. They're in the position in which they lay deceased. Sometimes the hands will be pronated, which means turned in. Sometimes they will be supinated, turned out. It just depends on what's happening. When you're going through the upper extremity, it's going to be slightly difficult because the muscles are described in this fashion, but the body has actually twists. So the muscles are going to be disoriented. Something to be careful for when you move into the upper extremity. These next answers and Q&As, let's go over them really quick. Complete the sentences using the terms you just learned. The nose is positioned where? On the face. On the anterior or medial, that's both correct. And blank is to now. Superior. The wrist is blank to the hand and the elbow is blank to the wrist. The wrist is proximal to the hand and the elbow is what to the wrist? The elbow is what to the wrist? Proximal. The elbow is closer to your midline of your body than the wrist. The face forms the blank surface of your head, anterior. The ears are positioned blank on the head, laterally on the sides. The lungs are positioned blank relative to the heart. Lateral, they sort of wrap around the heart. The lungs are positioned lateral relative to the heart, but blank relative to the diaphragm. Superior. Now the last one, I'm going to go ahead and let you solve on your own. You seem to have a pretty good grasp. I try to put as much rudimentary skills into this as possible because I don't know where you guys are standing from, your base level of understanding. So the last ones, you're going to label yourself. I have the answer keys if you want. You can email me and I'll email you the answer key. Now let's go to number 4, which is the diagram. So label the following. You see some of the labels already labeled for you, so let's go with A. What's A?
Distal.
Distal. So that would make D what? Proximal. B? Medial. C? Superior. Or, but look at the bottom, this is superior. What's the other one? What's the other word that means head? Do you remember? Cephalic. Great. Now we'll move on to the next page with something a little bit more complicated. I know I'm moving really fast, but I want you to understand the pace at which your class is going to move because all this base knowledge is going to be expected of you, and your professor is pretty much going to blow through the first few chapters in lab the first day. So you're going to have a leg up on it. When we talk about planes of reference, we always use the most amazing person in the world, 3D man. He looks simple enough. Now, 3D man is in an anatomical position. You can see his arms are laying to his side, face palms forward, feet, eyes, all forward. The first one we're going to talk about is the transverse plane. Transverse is defined as a transverse horizontal or cross section which separates superior and inferior portions of the body. Sections typically pass through the head and trunk regions. So that means a transverse plane or transverse cut is going to come into us this way, which means that our bodies are going to be separated into top and bottom, or anterior and inferior, or superior and inferior, I'm sorry, which give you a view like that. You'll be able to see how deep the body is, you'll be able to see anterior, posterior, and you should be able to see medial and lateral views. Now, horizontal cross-sectional, those two mean the same thing. They're just different terms or epithets. Next is sagittal. Sagittal separates into left and right portions, allowing the anterior and posterior views simultaneously. So, our next cut is going to come straight through my head, straight through 3D man, which means we'll be able to see anterior and posterior sides simultaneously, as well as superior and inferior. Now there's a special kind of sagittal cuts. One is the mid-sagittal. Mid-sagittal, as it says, has mid in the line, goes right through the midline, right through the middle, as it sounds, mid-sagittal, middle line. Parasagittal actually misses the midline and cuts the body into unequal portions. So say we get a parasagittal cut, go through my shoulder because I want to look at what my shoulder, I forgot what this is called. Shoulder socket looks like, sorry. So it would be unequal sizes. The last two are frontal and coronal. A frontal is a section separating anterior and posterior portions of the body, going through right through the top, which would give us coronal plane. See, not listening. Yeah, coronal plane. So you'll be able to see left and right, and posterior and anterior, medial and lateral. Now, when we talk about coronal sections, we actually talk specifically about the head. So it's the same as a frontal, but it's specifically talking about the head when we say coronal. So you can have a frontal section that goes through the entire body, and then the coronal section specifically targets the head. So that's slightly confusing? Yeah. Planes are going to be slightly confusing. Why we talk about them? The body is referred to as a 3D plane, so we can't actually write down on paper how it looks or describe it to you. So we use all three planes to create a 3D picture. Your understanding of how the body works without an actual physical attachment of it is going to depend on how well you can understand these planes, theoretically. Let's check your understanding of these terms since you have them in front of you. So number one, to show the positional relationship between the heart and the vertebral column, you should use a blank or the blank planes. The position relationship between the heart and the vertebral column. So if I wanted to see the heart and my vertebra, my spine, what plane would I use? Transverse, and then there's another way to use sagittal. Perfect. If I have my sagittal cut, I use a mid-sagittal, which cuts directly into the left and right portions, so I can split it up in half, and I can see where my heart was in relation to my spine. Using the transverse cut, we would cut it directly into my trunk, which separates me into superior and inferior portions. When we take that apart, and you'll be able to see the deep and superficialness, which is not a word, the relationship of the heart and the spine. Number two, to show the positional relationship, oh, did I just say that? No, I didn't. To show the positional relationship between the heart and the diaphragm, as well as the relationship between the heart and the lungs, you could use the what plane. So the heart, the diaphragm, the heart and the lungs. Which one will we use? Frontal. Exactly. To be able to see all structures, we have to separate the body between anterior and posterior sections coming down straight from my head. You can separate me in half, and you'll be able to see all structures as they lay anterior to superior, inferior. Superior to inferior. Sorry, I get tricked in this term myself. Number three, a blank section through the body will divide the body into two halves. With each half, will have one or more, or one of each paired organs. Mid-sagittal, exactly. Now you get it. A coronal plane divides the body into what sections? What two parts? Coronal. Anterior and posterior. Good. The blank and blank planes pass vertically through the body. Sagittal and frontal, which is synonymous for now for coronal. Another term for frontal is, good, as I said. The blank plane runs perpendicular to the longitudinal axis of the human body. The longitudinal means up and down. Transverse, cross-sectional, and horizontal, all go perpendicular to the longitudinal axis. Next we have another diagram. Real simple. Letter A. What was that? Frontal. Letter B. Transverse. Letter C. Sagittal. Those are quite easy enough. As they're laid out here, it's actually a really good depiction of how to expect presentations in your textbook. Your lab manual will have some pictures, but they're all hand-drawn, and I do not recommend using them for study. I recommend using the atlas. Moving on to body regions. Pardon me. Body regions is actually paired with that diagram on the next page. We'll just flip it over. So I'm not actually going to go after the answers to the body regions because I think they're easy enough, but we're going to recycle them over together. So let's start with number one. Cranial, skull, or cranial. Number two is facial, so facies for Latin, for face. Orbital, eye, or oculus. Thoracic, thorax, or chest, or thoracis, depending. Abdominal, abdomen. Axillary, armpit, also referred as the axilla, axillary region. Antecubital, front of the elbow, also known as antecubus, if we're talking about something more Latin based. Palmar, palm or palma, for the front of the hand. Inguinal means groin, or inguinal. Popliteal, back of the knee, also called popliteus, sorry. Plantar, sole of foot, also known as planta. Gluteal, buttock or gluteus. Pubis, pelvis or pubis. Brachial, arm or brachium. Now those are pretty easy to understand. So So I think we can pass on that diagram. I think we'll be able to figure out what was for where. On Mastering A&P, they actually have the same diagram, so you can use that as a reference. And all the terms will be found on the first few chapters of the book. And find that table. There we go. The table 1.1 on page 16 has a lot of these terms, as well as everything else we went over just now. We're going to be in this section. Now we're going to switch gears. The next section is the skeletal system terminology. This is specifically taken from your lab manual. So, if you know the answer, go ahead and shout it out. We're going to go over it real quick. Articulation, joint, condyle, a rounded articular projection of bone. A rounded articular projection of bone. Facet.
Smooth area.
That's right. A small, flat, articular surface. So smooth area. Basically means when two bones come together. Facet. Foramen. That's right. Good. A round passageway. Normally we find vessels or nerves traveling through foramen. One specific case is the obturator foramen. You'll talk specifically about what these nerves are. We're going over this because your base knowledge depends on your understanding of how bones work. For instance, we have the epicondyles or demifacets, which you'll have to figure out, okay, well, demi means half, so it's half a facet. And if we're talking about the demifacet of the vertebra, that means it's the half facet, or the half articulated place in the vertebra. Very easy. But you needed to learn this first before you had any understanding of anything at all. That's how anatomy is going to work. It's going to build upon itself. First you learn the basics, which we're rushing through right now. Dr. Sheard wanted to talk to you so badly. And then after that, you'll build onto everything else that's going to happen. Next is fossa. Number 5, shallow depression. Number 6, a meatus. Passageway through a substance of bone, but yes, it's an opening. Process or canal. Any projection or bump, or a point of attachment, basically where a muscle would attach, or a tendon. Spine of the bone.
Is that the same as like the shaft or the neck of it?
The spine of the bone? No, that would refer to specifically neck or ridge, just depends. Spine is basically a pointed process, or like, for instance, the spine of the iliacus bone is a ridge of the bone.
Like the scapula?
Yeah, the spine of the scapula, a pointed ridge. Suture.
Where did you go?
Yes, fibrous joint between flat bones of a joint. We have many sutures in our skulls. This is a random tidbit. For some reason, Native Americans actually have more sutures than any other culture. Isn't that weird? Number 10 is trochanter. Trochanter is a large, rough projection, such as those on the femur. We have such big muscles to move us around that we need a large area of attachment. Followed by tubercle. Tubercles are small, round projections, also points of attachment. Don't get confused between tubercle and trochanters. You remember their size is what defines them. Yes?
Did you say rough or round?
Rough.
On both of those?
Yes. And then last is tuberosity, and that's just a rough projection. So it's not a trochanter, it's not a tubercle, it's a tuberosity. The next part goes over term structure. So the last portion, the appendices of your lab book actually go over word information. So this is what assignment, one of your assignments is the lab manual. I'm going over it here right now because as I talked about earlier, I briefly said that I actually know quite a bit of Latin, and I find it the most useful tool in my repertoire of learning. I think Latin and medical terms are going to be really easy in comparison to what this is about. So what that means for you, is it coming on slowly, thinking about it? So I have labeled these areas, and I want you to copy them down into your packets right now. First area is the first part that's elect, or electra. or it would be electro, electrique, is a prefix. So each word is going to be broken down. First part is a prefix, which will tell you what exactly the word's happening, what processes or examination, or what's exactly happening. In between are the combining vowels. The combining vowels will drop off whatever vowel was on previous. For example, in this one, electrocardiogram, electro just turned into O and back to an O, followed by the root, which is cario or cardio, which means refrains to the heart. And then the suffix is gram, which means photograph of, or picture of, or outline thereof. This seems pretty rudimentary, but if you can learn how to break down the words as you're reading in your lab manuals, you'll be able to understand what they mean much more quickly. For instance, what is an electrocardiogram? It's an EKG. Exactly. Pretty easy. So it's just basically an electronic graphic of your heart. And then this is how you'll treat most of the words that are unfamiliar to you. It may seem a little silly, but I wanted to include it because in the next section, we actually go over root words, prefixes, and suffixes. This will actually help you understand lab in general. You can find all these in your appendixes, in your book. There it is. So in your book, you just write this down on the side. In the appendixes, appendix 820, it'll have foreign root words, prefixes, and suffixes, and combining forms. If there's ever a word that just seems that you just don't understand, and it won't help you understand the entire definition or what's happening in whatever paragraph, then I recommend you just hop over here, look at it, and it'll help you solve it. You can also use this format in order to help solve the word. Also next to it is eponyms in common use. The difference in language between your book and laboratory manual are a little bit subtle. Some of the common eponyms are going to be like Apollo's, what do we call it? Apollo's sphincter, which just means pancreatic duct. Or you can also hear campanile tendon, which means Achilles tendon. Those two are synonymous. That's going to be the three main challenges you'll face as anatomy students, is understanding the words, knowing how to break down the words, and then transferring languages between lab manual and textbook. Now I'm not going to go over all these because I'm all the time. But I have the answer keys if you wanted to do them on your own. I can just email them to you. Is there any more questions? I know I blew through this as fast as I could. But that's basically the first few chapters, day one of the lab. Any questions? Kyle, did you have anything to add?
I just want to make sure everybody signed in.